Warning, the Stone Age Gamer includes a lot of bad language. Cover your mother ears.
Good evening and welcome to episode 123 of the Stone Age Gamer podcast for the week of October 21st, 2016. I am Kris Randazzo, and with me as always is canceled Dreamcast game, Dan Ryan.
Aw.
Yeah, it was sad. Actually, you know what? It's not so sad because I went back and looked at the trailers for it, and by today's standards, it kind of looked like crap. But
yeah,
anyway, we'll get to that later. Castlevania is still 30 years old, so as part of Decade's 31 Days of Halloween, a very tired Dan and a very tired me are spending the month doing a Castlevania retrospective series. But before we get to that, here is your weekly reminder that you can email us at mail@decade.com. And let us know what you think of our show, what topics you would like us to discuss in the future, or just say hello, because we always want to hear from you, the listener. Also, one more point of fun, our friends over at Level Up Entertainment are participating in the Extra Life charity this year. It's plus two games, plus two comedy? I don't know. I'm tired, but they're nice folks. They're the place that I go to buy most of my games and comic books. They'll be playing games from November 5th to 6th, the 24-hour marathon. Seems familiar to us. For more information about the event, follow the link in the show notes. It is a great charity, and the folks at Level Up are really good peoples. So, Dan, how are you?
I'm fucking sick, man. Like, it's the first time it's happened this year. Well,
Damn.
No, I was in the hospital earlier this year, but that was like for a day. And that was just because I forgot to eat for like, because my job is weird and like it's hard to eat. Like, I know that sounds fucking stupid, but like, it's just the timing is weird. So like, I didn't eat like at work for like a week because I just kept forgetting to because shit kept coming up. And then I went to the doctors because I had horrible fucking headaches, and they were like, well, what have you been eating? And I answered honestly because it's a doctor, and I said, well, nothing. And the nurse looked at me and she went, well, that's fucking stupid. You have to eat. It's like, no, I know, like I'm in my third, like I didn't make it this far without eating. But she was like, have a fucking banana,
this just
asshole.
Happens?
Like, I just came out this way. Anyway, so other than that, though, like I haven't been, but like I have like a sore throat and like just feel general shittiness. But I've already called out of work tomorrow, so I'm already 2 beers deep.
Nice.
So I'm gonna try and poison the sickness with alcohol. That'll work,
Alcohol
right?
is a sterilizing agent. That should do it.
I'm just going to sterilize my throat with beer.
See, now I have the opposite problem because I am excruciatingly tired because of baby. And when I'm tired, I make really bad eating decisions.
Like a whole ham. Like just the whole thing.
So today, I wanted to get something for lunch, and I went to my local ShopRite that has one of those little stations where they make sandwiches for you. That's like not the deli, it's like the little sandwich building station. They're so delicious, and they're relatively cheap. Way cheaper and tastier than buying a Wawa sub. I hate to disparage Wawa, but facts are facts.
They are.
So I went there, and it was fucking closed. The woman's all mopping up the counters. She's like, yeah, sorry, we're closed for the day. I'm like, the fuck? I can barely form coherent sentences. I finally came up with something I wanted to eat, and nope, sorry. So I just got in my car, and naturally my brain just drove me to Chipotle because
Sure.
just burritos. So I got myself a big-ass Chipotle burrito, bought some chips and salsa on the side, pounded that, then decided I wanted something cold and sweet, and it's not exactly hot outside.
No.
Drove over to Wawa, got myself a super extra large cookies and cream milkshake, drank that till I got sick, had a quick sugar rush, then nearly passed out on my computer.
I find Castlevania, we'll get there in a minute. I find that I want ice cream more when it's colder. Like,
Yeah,
I don't want ice cream when it's super hot outside. I want like a nice sorbet. No, I don't fucking eat sorbet. I'm not fancy, but you know, I really do. I don't know.
I understand that. I eat more popsicles when it's hot outside.
Yeah.
That said, I always want ice cream.
Well, that's true. The Haagen-Dazs Mayan chocolate, which is like a Mexican hot chocolate in ice cream form, it is the tits.
That sounds delightful.
It is.
Yeah. All right, Castlevania. Dracula loves ice cream.
Dracula, look into my eyes. Bring me ice cream. Evan, edit all this shit out.
So if you're just joining us,
Good evening,
for our
everyone.
Retrospective. We've broken the series into 5 categories that we have been covering for the past few weeks. There was the classic style, the 16-bit style, the Metroidvania style, 3D style, and the weird stuff. Tonight is the finale, so we're talking about the 3D stuff and the weird stuff. Saying it right now, we're not getting to Lords of Shadow, but it's like that's kind of a different series entirely, so I'm cool with it. We are here to celebrate classic Castlevania, so here we go. Castlevania's transition into 3D was as rocky as the polygons that made it up for the Nintendo 64. And in the case of the first 2 games, yeah. So let's dive in, shall we? let's pull up our big boy pants and make this happen. First, Castlevania. Which is actually the name of the game. Everyone thinks it's Castlevania 64, but it's not. It's just called Castlevania.
Just Castlevania.
Yep.
Very creative.
Well done, guys. Well done. Released on January 26th, 1999 here in the U.S., and then a few months later on March 11th, 1999 in Japan. Starring Reinhard Schneider and Carrie Fernandez.
Yep.
Reinhard Schneider being some sort of descendant of the Belmont clan, and Carrie Fernandez being some sort of descendant of the Belnades clan. So it ties in with the mythology fairly well. And to this game's credit, I beat this game. I played through it beginning to end, and I didn't hate it. It gets a worse reputation than it deserves, but it doesn't exactly deserve love, if you know what I mean.
The game itself isn't awful.
No,
and that's about the
definitely has
highest
some
compliment you can give it, because it is uglier than hell.
Yeah, it's pretty, like, at the time, it wasn't, compared to other games on the market at that time, particularly ones that were fully 3D like this. I mean, like, this wasn't like Crash Bandicoot 3D. This was like Mario 64 3D. This was absolute free roaming, go anywhere, look at anything 3D. So for its time, there were things, like, it wasn't that hideous, I guess, compared to its contemporaries. But boy, going back and looking at it now is just like, ugh.
What I find interesting about this one is that I think you're right. For its time when it came out, it was not noticeably or demonstrably worse than any of its contemporaries. But going back to it, it is somehow worse now than it was then.
Yeah, and the other thing that this had visually going against it is that this was the game that came after Symphony, you know? And Symphony, by all accounts, is gorgeous, and this was like, I mean, I get it. You're going into 3D. It's harder to make this look nice, but
sure.
Man. But, you know, you start up the game, and it starts off with that little violin solo thing, and that's kind of neat. The very beginning of the game, the first area you go through, and, like, you're just running, and then that lightning bolt hits the tree and knocks it over, and it's like, okay, this game's kind of cool. And it's like all raining, and then the giant skeleton shows up. But then there comes a point where there's skeletons riding motorcycles around. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, kind of weird is what I would describe that as. Not really weird. Not fucking nut. Just it's kind of weird. It's a little off.
We've seen some weird stuff in Castlevania. The skeletons on the motorcycles. I'm wondering where they got them. You know, that's weird. But
Hell on wheels. Ugh, God. Because you know that's what somebody said somewhere along the way. They were like, hell on wheels, man. And they were like, oh, shit, put that in the game. Fucking make it happen. God
then there
damn
was
it.
the bit towards the end of the game where you had to, like, carry the nitro. Did you play through this game?
Oh, God, no.
Okay.
Are
There's
you
this
fucking
bit towards
nuts?
the end, which is kind of great. You have to carry this, like, nitroglycerin stuff across the entire castle, and you cannot jump or, like, fall off a step.
Oh, God, that sounds
You
so
have to,
fun.
like, it's actually kind of fun. Like, it's because it's so silly. Like, it's just like, all right, because there's like inclines all over the place. But if you're like trying to run away from bad guys or something and you accidentally step off a step, you just fucking explode.
Jesus Christ.
I remember really enjoying that part of the game. Like, and the other thing I did like about this was that it was an honest to goodness attempt to make Castlevania in 3D.
Right.
And one of the ways that they made that work, I think, pretty well was with the inclusion of the secondary knife weapon. Was you had your whip for your regular attacks, but the flow of Castlevania is a lot of constant movement and hitting the candles to get with your whip to get the items. But since the whip kind of makes you stop, they had this little weak knife attack that you could continue to run while swinging the knife, and so you wouldn't have to slow down when you were hitting candles. You wouldn't have to bust out a whip attack for that. So that kind of made things move smoother. Like, I appreciate what they were going for with this game, but they just weren't. It wasn't good enough. This generation was not the time to bring Castlevania into 3D. It just wasn't.
No, it's just like you get points for trying.
You do.
You
get
know,
points
like
for trying.
You get points for trying, and like that's
you get
real
points
nice.
for having your main character be a redhead named Reinhard Schneider.
Like, that's the worst name. That is the worst name.
And,
Come on.
And we're judging him against Grant Dynasty here.
Yeah. Like, get it? Because he's nasty? Like, it's like a fucking Janet Jackson song.
Oh, goodness.
It's a joke for the older crowd. Fucking, like... But Reinhard Schneider, like, oh, God, just stop. No.
Sounds like a villain in a... Well, no, he was a villain in a... Minus the Reinhardt, Dr. Schneider was in Last Crusade.
Yeah, good point.
Good times.
He
All right,
chose
so,
poorly.
Yeah, that's about enough of that game. We have a lot of games to cover tonight, so we're gonna keep this train moving. So
before you pass out.
Indeed. The very same year, we got a second one of these games.
Because they were like, you don't have enough already.
I don't understand how this game happened. This is the same year on November 30th, 1999 in the United States, after the Dreamcast launched, so game was looking pretty ugly by that point.
Yeah.
And then on December 25th, Christmas Day, 1999 in Japan, right? Christmas is on the 25th?
Yeah.
Or the 24th? 25th.
No, it's, really? You've got children, Chris. You need to fucking know this.
He's so tired.
They're going to know. I promise.
Yeah, he's going to know. The baby probably won't know.
No, the baby knows.
She'll know. She knows.
She's going to know. She's going to be 2 months old by the time Christmas runs around. She's going to be like, Daddy, what the fuck? We're getting presents tomorrow too, right? Because, like, these are obviously from you. So where are the presents from Santa? Your baby has a very poor mouth, by the way.
She's quite the potty mouth.
She really does. For being 2 months old.
So, N64, Castlevania Legacy of Darkness. From the people who brought you that other stuff, more of the same.
Yeah, you know a game is awesome when on the Wikipedia page there are literally 2 pictures. One of them a blurry-ass screenshot and the other one the cover of the box. Not even the back, like, that's it.
Yeah,
that's what you get about this game.
This one I did not play. I have it. I have the game complete in the box because it became very rare very quickly, and I saw that coming, so I kind of nabbed one up early on because I was like, it's a Castlevania game. I gotta have it.
Right.
And I'm glad it did because I don't want to pay stupid money for this game ever in my life.
No.
because it's a lot more of the same. It does clean up a few things. I've played a little bit of it in my store back when we got it, and I was like, this is the same thing. But from what I've come to understand, it does iron out a few wrinkles that the original game had. I don't know what they are. I don't know how. That's its general reputation. But as far as I'm concerned, its general reputation is that it is completely effing pointless.
Mm-hmm.
Like, talk about a game we did not need.
No, like it did not sell well. Nobody gave a shit when it came out.
It wasn't widely distributed either. I feel like it was in some areas. I think it was Blockbuster exclusive. Like, this is one of those games that like a lot of people didn't even realize existed at the time.
They thought it was just like, oh, it's a Castlevania game on 64. Like, they thought both games were interchangeable.
Yeah, that they were the same thing. I mean, it came out earlier that year. They dropped 2 Castlevania games in the course of a year, and which
should be awesome. That should be great. Like, got 2 fucking Castlevania games? But no,
it was not awesome.
This one, there's like a werewolf or some shit.
Yeah, I mean, they tie into each other pretty thoroughly. I think, please don't quote me on this. Again, I'm very tired, but I feel like, I mean, I have a computer in front of me. I could look it up, but I'm fairly certain that a lot of this content was content that they wanted to put in the game in the first place. This was almost like, this was a Mario Galaxy 2 situation if Mario Galaxy 2 wasn't very good.
Right.
So it's just like, here's all this stuff we wanted to do. We had this other character. We wanted to put him in the game, and we just ran out of time and space, so we just made another one. Enjoy.
Yeah, I have at least played a little bit of the 64 Castlevania. Mm-hmm. This one I've played absolutely nothing of.
Well, you're not missing much.
No, I'm all right.
Speaking of missing, next game on our list is a game that nobody's played because it never came out. Castlevania Resurrection for the Sega Dreamcast was canceled in March of 2000.
It was great.
It was fantastic.
Love this game.
The screenshots looked pretty neat. It starred Sonia Belmont, the character from Castlevania Legends for Game Boy, and the screenshots were pretty fancy looking, and it's like, Dreamcast. Now we're looking at a system that could make a 3D Castlevania game that's not that ugly. So,
right.
Huzzah. But like earlier today when I was putting together my notes for the show, I looked at the trailer for it that exists, and boy, that's some circa 2000 CGI right there, man. No way.
Again,
I
it
has
not.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It has not aged well.
No, and I'm pretty sure this game got the crap canceled out of it for a good reason. Like, and it wasn't just because the Dreamcast wasn't doing extraordinarily well. I think it was that this game was, it was a combination of that and that this game just wasn't shaping up to be a whole lot better than Castlevania for N64. And those 2 games didn't, even by that point, didn't have a great legacy. So, It's a shame it never came out, I guess, because it would have been interesting to have a proper Castlevania on the Dreamcast, but same token.
Meh.
And like, Sonia Belmont has been expunged from the mythos anyway.
Right.
So, yeah. Too late, flat beer. Anyway,
yeah, all right.
we finally, in the year of our Lord 2003, we finally got a good 3D Castlevania game. And that was Castlevania Lament of Innocence for the PlayStation 2, released on October 21st, 2003 here in the U.S., again first in the U.S., and then November 27th, 2003 in Japan. And this was hyped very much at the time, because it was like, all right, we did it. We made Castlevania in 3D. We got IGA involved. We got the proper Castlevania team involved in this process. We're making this shit happen. And this was well after Devil May Cry hit, and everyone said, well, isn't that basically Castlevania in 3D? And I'm sitting here thinking like, well, yeah, I guess if Castlevania had guns, but sure. Lament of Innocence was a pretty badass game.
I fucking love this game.
Yeah.
I really do. Like when this came out, me and me and my buddy Nick, my roommate at the time in college, we played the shit out of this game. Like we beat this game as I like 100% beat this game. You know, like found every secret, went through everything, just enjoyed the hell out of it. It is certainly derivative of Devil May Cry. But that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and it is more Castlevania flavored than Devil May Cry too.
Oh, certainly.
Like with the exploration elements and the way the map functionality and whatnot. It is, like you said, definitely derivative, but
Devil May Cry is great.
Yeah,
You know, like
seriously.
it's not like Devil May Cry wasn't fun and people are like, "Oh, this sucks." Like this game had, you know, like a combo system that was completely stolen from Devil May Cry, and a lot of the edgier for the time camera angles and whatnot were very Devil May Cry inspired. But the game itself felt like Castlevania in 3D, which I don't think the ones on the N64 ever truly felt like Castlevania games. They felt like action games where I was going to fight a vampire, but they didn't feel like Castlevania because there's a certain thing, and it probably just comes down to the exploration factor of it, but there is a certain Castlevania-ness that was decidedly missing from them and was here. Plus, it had some really fucking dope-ass cutscenes.
I mean, I think it was style, really. I mean, the Castlevania for N64 and both of them, they didn't really have that style that these games had. They didn't have the right color palettes. They were very muddy looking. The character designs were not interesting. Like Carrie Fernandez and Reinhard Schneider and Cornell the Werewolf, like none of these characters looked particularly cool, and that's something that Castlevania always had going for it, particularly after starting around, I would say, Bloodlines, and then going forward, the character designs were pretty solid.
Yeah, and Leon in this game, Leon Belmont, I believe it's Leon, right?
Yes. Yeah, he's the first Belmont, according to this. This was where they officially kicked Sonya to the curb and first Belmont was this dude, Leon Belmont.
Because you don't even have, like, when you start, the whip isn't even Vampire Killer yet. It's a whip, and it's upgradable, and you can
Whip of Alchemy or something like that.
Yeah, the Whip of Alchemy, and it harkened back to Castlevania 2 with like the Flame Whip and the Ice Whip and shit, which I thought was really cool. And then eventually it becomes Vampire Killer, and that felt like a special thing. And then like the way he looks is very cool. The white jacket with like the red cross on it, and he's fucking cool, man.
It's really kind of reminiscent of Just or Juiced or however you say his name.
Yeah.
Similar color palette to him, but I think a slightly cooler design. Definitely had some early 2000s PS2 hair going on.
Oh, sure.
But still, I mean, yeah, this game was great. There's no question about it. This game was awesome.
Well, and one of the things I really liked about it too was the boss fights.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They were like huge, right?
Yeah, the bosses were massive. And like they do that in the 2D Castlevanias as well. The bosses are really big. But there wasn't that, I don't know, there wasn't really like that sense of imminent threat from the bosses in like the 2D Castlevanias. Because they're big, but like they're just big. These guys are huge, like these towering monsters, and you have to use different mechanics to get around them. And because this game controlled as well as it did, it was fun to find a way to fight these bosses. Like, it was just a very cool game.
Yeah, and seeing that kind of art style come to life in 3D was really impressive. Like, to have it actually really realized for the first time. This was a very, very good job of making Castlevania 3D, which I would argue that it doesn't necessarily need to be, but I'm glad they did this. Now, moving on past this one would be Castlevania Curse of Darkness, which was about 2 years later. It came out on PS2 and Xbox here in the United States on November 1st, and then November 24th only on PS2 in Japan because nobody in Japan liked the Xbox. I didn't really touch this game, to be honest with you. I bought it, and I never really got around to playing it.
I was in school again when this came out, but I was getting my master's when this came out, so I didn't do anything. I fucking studied and wrote papers. So I have actually never even played this.
Huh. Yeah, I have very little to say about it. I know I don't know what it was about this game that didn't particularly interest me. Maybe it was the fact that the main character wasn't a Belmont or anything like that. It was just, I don't know. It just, there's something about this game didn't really spark my interest so much that I had to play it. But I knew I had to buy it. And from all accounts I've heard, it's a very good game. I just don't know enough about it, really.
It's always reviewed very favorably, and I know there was some concern when the game came out that it was just more of the same, kind of the way the 64 titles fell into that, like, oh, this is just the same kind of thing, and we haven't really done much to update it. And I know, like I said, being in school and having an incredible amount of working full-time and being in school full-time, there really wasn't a lot of free time to do anything else. So when the reviews came out and they were like, it's good, but if you've played the other one, like, that was kind of where I stopped reading.
Yeah.
I was like, all right.
I feel like there
right
must
now.
have been more to it than that, because I know the main character in this game didn't control particularly like Leon, because he wasn't a whip-wielding Belmont. He was like half demon or something like that. Games always interested me, but not enough to really sit down and give it a shot. And it's one of those games that I always meant to go back to. And I mean, has this been re-released on any of the networks? Do you know?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't say so. Just PS2 and Xbox.
Interesting. Maybe I'll bust out my Xbox one of these days and I have a PS2 compatible PS3 hooked up, so I should just plop it in there. And
do you? Mine broke. Mine eventually. I got the yellow light of death and had to get a new one. It was very sad.
Profound sadness.
However, I still have my PS2. That fucking thing still works.
Yeah. Actually, I have a short stack of those things. Good times.
Actually, my original PlayStation still works.
Yeah, mine does too.
Like, that thing is a fucking tank.
Yeah.
Anyway,
even if that does die, my PS1, the little guy, that thing will last, nuclear holocaust.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're going to take ourselves a quick break. When we come back, we're going to discuss
Kid
the most
Dracula.
fun.
Oh,
no. Kid Dracula and the rest of the weird stuff. You're listening to the Stone Age Gamer podcast from Geekade.com, so stick around. And now here's a look at some of the other original content available right now at Geekade.com. First up, Geekade's 31 Days of Halloween is all about celebrating the scary. But there's another Halloween tradition that is worth our attention: candy. Last year, John Heacock and myself created the controversial Geekade Top 10 Candy Bars. And this year, we set out to piss people off even more by ranking all the non-bar candy out there. Because people gave us so much crap for not putting Reese's Peanut Butter Cups on our top 10 candy bars list, when peanut butter cups are not bars. It says so in the title. Join the discussion and read Geekade Top 10 Candy, Not Bars.
I want candy, bubblegum and taffy. Skip to my sweetheart.
Skip to the sweet shop with my sweetheart Sandy.
Skip to the sweet shop. God, it's been a long time. Anyway. Next, we here at Geekade are big fans of the Twilight Zone.
We sure are, Dan.
You're fucking right, Kris. It's my favorite ride of all time. It's the Twilight Zone ride at MGM. It's not MGM. Anyway.
The Tower of Terror?
Yeah, oh God, it's so fucking fun. Love that ride. Anyway, we're big fans. Twilight Zone as evidenced by our Twilight Zone podcast submitted for your approval. The creator of said legendary TV show did more with his career than just the Twilight Zone. Our very own Chip Garrison joined in on the 31 Days of Halloween fun by talking about Rod Serling, his other TV series. Don't miss Geekade's scariest moments, Night Galleries. It is Serling, right? Not Sterling, like you typed. It's
I
Serling.
thought it was Sterling.
No, it's Serling,
Really?
I think. Evan?
To the internet.
It's Serling.
Thank you.
Wishing I had some chicken-flavored air conditioning. Then, Gabby Robbins usually spends her time writing monthly articles about automating your home with cool pieces of technology. But since we're in the midst of Geekade's 31 Days of Halloween, plugging this one pretty hard, she decided to see how these fancy tools might help create the ultimate in haunted house scares. This was actually a really interesting article. It's talking about using all this stuff to make your own creepy-ass haunted house, like automatically dimming lights and whatnot. It's pretty neat. Head over to the think tank and read Haunted Autopilot, a fantasy guide to an automated haunted house.
Automated haunted house.
A hauntimated house.
Don't blame me. I voted for... Anyway. Finally. Clinton.
Santa?
Oh, fuck me running. I'm a man who knows no fear, but at the tender age of 12, fear happened to pierce my soul. That fear came in the form of a classic horror movie monster starring in a genuinely awful horror movie. I didn't know it at the time. Like, at 12, my tastes were not as nuanced or refined as they are now as a grown man.
You were drinking Bud Light back then, you know?
Right, I was drinking Natty Ice at 12. Because terrible parenting. They couldn't even, like, they left me alone all the time, but, like, they couldn't even leave me good beer. Like, they left me shitty beer. Fucking terrible. Anyway. Check out Geekade's Scariest Moments, where I talk about a movie that genuinely scared the fucking shit out of me. Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. Don't go watch the movie now, though, because then you'll think I'm an asshole. that thing could have scared me. But at 12, holy shit.
You can catch all this great stuff plus tons of other articles, videos, podcasts, and more right now at geekade.com. And we're back, preemptively jumping on top of our topic for next week. So, all right, here we are. This is the fun one. We're going to rapid fire this stuff because Dan and I are tired, and these are weird games, some of which we won't have a lot to say about, some of which we will probably have some of the stuff. Let's jump right in, shall we? Starting in the wonderful age of the 80s, we're talking February of 1988 in Japan and September of 1988 in the United States, a game called Haunted Castle hit the arcades, which is basically an arcade version of the original Castlevania with a really ugly, burly protagonist.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
I mean, what a weird thing. Because Konami went from, like, being king of the arcade games to specifically making Castlevania for home consoles. And they're like, fuck it, let's put it back in the arcade.
Yeah. Like, this wasn't long after the NES one. I mean, it just, and all right, let's make an arcade version, too. And not have it actually be Castlevania, but kind of still be Castlevania. And this game was put on, I think it showed up on PlayStation Network at some point.
I
so,
think
like,
yeah.
It is actually accessible. I don't think you should access it unless you are such a Castlevania fan that you just have to try it, which I was. I accessed it via an emulator because I had to try this game out, and it's not great.
No. It is
It's not the
Rastan.
worst game,
And that is the problem.
I mean, if you want to run around as a big burly dude in a loincloth, there are better options out there.
There's one game, I think we've talked about it before. I think it's called Gladiator. Like, I think we talked about it, and then I later went and found it where, like, you're a big dude in, like, blue armor, and as you're walking through, like, pieces of your armor get knocked off. But it's, like, one-on-one fighting. That game's fucking dope. Rastan is awesome. Fucking Ghosts and Goblins. Like, play that. Do not play Haunted. Do not play Haunted Castle.
Yeah, not worth your time.
You should look at the promotional poster, though. Like, we should probably link it in the show notes, because it says revamp an old kit. Get it? Revamp an old game with this new kit. And, like, it's got the worst, like, this awful Bela Lugosi impersonator. And, like, a chick in a white dress, like, hiding behind some, like, tombstones and, like, but it appears to be at the top of a castle. But then all the tombstones, like, I don't fucking understand what's going on in this picture. But it's incredible. I want it on a t-shirt.
Is that assisted living Dracula?
It is assisted living Dracula.
Oh, it's really good. Well, and the guy's good in it.
Oh, fuck this game. God damn it, Haunted Castle could go suck an egg. Pardon my French. I apologize.
The next game. All right, so we're doing these chronologically. The next weird-ass Castlevania game to show up never came out here in America. It's only released on the Famicom on October 19th, 1990, in the land of the rising sun. Demon Castle Special, I'm Kid Dracula. Because I'm way too tired to even attempt the Japanese name of this game. That's the loose translation. Yo, this game is awesome. Game,
I've never played it.
I was
at least I don't think I've played it. Now I have to look.
I messed around with it for a few minutes actually earlier today. What's really cool about the first level of this game is, and it took me a while to realize it, the music for the first stage is the beginning from, which is such a weird name for a track, but it's called Beginning from Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, but all in major chords.
Okay. So it's like happy.
Yeah, it's like a super happy version of Beginning from Castlevania 3. And it's really similar to the Game Boy game that I know you've played.
I have played the Game Boy. Actually, I think I have messed around with this on an emulator at some point. Not for very long, but I'm looking at some screenshots. It does look relatively familiar. I'm very tired.
I mean, you run around as Kid Dracula. Like, you're running around as essentially Alucard, and it could have not even been related to Castlevania, but it is so related to Castlevania. It actually says Castlevania on the title screen in the game.
Which is awesome.
And you just, the stages are all like these kind of brightly colored chibi versions of, you know, the traps that you see in stages in Castlevania. It's just a genuinely cool platformer. You know, you have your little fireball thing that you can throw, and you run, you jump. The first boss, I believe, is a clan member. And then I don't know what else to call that thing.
They should be fucking beat up, though. I mean, like,
absolutely,
let's be honest,
they should.
If you're a racist fuckhead,
I just don't know what they're doing there.
That's a good point. Are vampires inherently racist? Are we making Transylvania great again? Fanger by the Poussoir? Is that what's happening?
Oh, Jesus. All right.
Is that our show title? Can we put that in there?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a weird game, but I mean, if you got yourself an EverDrive or something, or a Famicom, find it. It's awesome. It's just a great little platformer, and it's a fun little side story for Castlevania. And, you know, this is back when Konami had a good sense of humor about themselves, and they made games like Parodius, you know?
Yeah. How, Chris, now, quick question.
Yeah.
I don't have an EverDrive. Mm-hmm. Where could I get one?
You can get those black market. No.
You can get back of some guy's trunk
at StoneAgeGamer.com. This is actually completely organic. This is actually happening. This was not planned. No, you can get EverDrives at StoneAgeGamer.com. I friggin' love mine. The only one I actually own is the EverDrive N8, which is the NES one, but I've messed around. I've had the privilege of messing around with a few of the other ones, including the TurboGrafx one, which is awesome. because, TurboGrafx is awesome.
Buy EverDrives. Ryan has mouths to feed.
That's right. Do it.
God damn it.
Do it. So, moving on. 1993. January 3rd, 1993 in Japan, and then in March of 1993 in the United States, Kid Dracula for Game Boy came out.
Yay!
And if I'm remembering correctly, it is a sequel to Demon Castle Special I'm Kid Dracula.
Yes.
It's not just a remake of said game. And I have played very little of it, but what I have played is freaking cool. Dan, why don't you chime in on this one?
It is a cute version of Castlevania. I mean, it is. I don't believe that I've ever finished it. But it does have it shares a lot of the same qualities with the Famicom only release of it. Is a very tongue-in-cheek look at Castlevania. Konami was a company at a time that made a game called Parodius that was a parody of all of their shooters. This was a parody of Castlevania, which was itself kind of a parody to start with. So it's just an even more ridiculous version, and it's something that's very, very Japanese. Like, we don't have in the States chibi versions of our pop culture.
Muppet Babies.
Fair point. Other than Muppet Babies. But
Tiny Toons, dude.
Even that, but that's not really a chibi version. You know what I mean?
It's
like,
not the chibi version, yeah.
There's something very inherently different about it. But chibi versions exist of much of Japan's pop culture, and but are taken, like, I think maybe minus like Tiny Toons and Muppet Babies, which I would somewhat argue that are not necessarily chibi, but outside of those, like, little kid versions of popular North American things don't really ever take off. Like Tales from the Crypt versus Tales from the Crypt cartoon show, very, very different.
Yeah.
One of them was awesome, one of them was shit. I'll leave it up to the listeners to decide which one was which. But like in Japan, the chibi version of things is just commonplace. I mean, fuck, it's Puzzle and Dragons plug, because they need it. Gung Ho, give me money, free stones. There's a ton of like chibi versions of the characters there as well, so it's a thing that happens. But it's cute and it's fun. I remember it being relatively difficult. It's a
Konami platformer from the 90s, so yes, it has to be difficult, mandated by law.
Right, it's just one of those things. I remember the music being really good in this.
Also wouldn't surprise me.
It's fucking expensive now. Like, I would say go out and like pick it up, but this hasn't ever been virtual consoled anywhere, I don't believe.
No. And it's a Castlevania spin-off that was available in America in relatively limited quantities because it wasn't a huge success here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's retroactively became quite the collector's item.
Yeah,
Kind of similar to, like, I don't know if Konami Crazy Racers itself became expensive, but that was another game that had, I think, Kid Dracula was in it. I know Dracula was in it, but
yeah, there's like I mean, you can. I'm looking on eBay, and there is just the cart is $100.
That's a lot of nuts.
And it's not worth it. Like, please don't go out and spend $100 on Kid Dracula. But if you could maybe get an EverDrive, or find another way to do it, play Kid Dracula. It was fun.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on. The next game on the list deserves no mention, but we are going to mention it anyway because we are doing this thoroughly. On September 18th of 2007, released only in the United States for Windows mobile phones. That's right, the old flip phones. Castlevania Order of Shadows. What a piece of shit.
Is it? I got nothing. I've never played it.
I have never actually played it, but I have watched several videos of it, and it's not good. It's it's a vertical orientation for the screen, so you can't see more than like 2 feet in front of your character.
That's not
It's
good.
just stupid. It's slow. There is a really interesting thing about it I learned from a YouTube video of somebody playing it. If you emulate this game, the game is actually programmed it doesn't stop you from stretching the screen out in front of you. So like it screws up some things, but you can actually change your field of vision for it to be like a giant rectangular screen, so you can see pretty far ahead of you. The game's not really designed to be played like that, so it does get wonky from time to time, but it does make it considerably more playable, which is kind of neat. But yeah,
which is a thing
game,
you could do.
It is a thing you could do if you really wanted to track down the Windows Mobile only Order of Shadows, just because you've got to play every Castlevania game. You could do that if you really wanted to.
You probably shouldn't.
You probably shouldn't. I mean, this is mobile games back when this came out, back in 2007, you know, they weren't great to begin with.
No.
There's a reason this game, even from 2007, is not considered part of the canon, because it's just stupid. It's just stupid.
It has a very tiny Wikipedia page.
Now, speaking of stupid, for some reason,
I'm excited.
For some reason, the fine folks at Konami decided that not only were they going to make some Castlevania pachinko machines, but what needed to happen was a Castlevania game for the Wii. And we get that.
Sure.
You swing your hand like a whip? Sure, we should do that. But what they then decided was that, you know what we really need to do is make it a one-on-one fighting game.
Mm-hmm.
And then we need to get the artist from Death Note to completely redesign all the characters with kind of an S&M vibe.
We need him to get his Death Note rejects and just put them in this game.
And release it exclusively for the Wii. And they did that. A game called Castlevania Judgment, released on November 8th, 2008 here in America, and then January 15th, 2009 in the Japans. Wow. You know what? All right, let me get this out of the way. Mechanically speaking, like if you are just judging this as a straight fighting game, is not the worst fighting game in the world.
Sure.
It is a perfectly competent fighting game, which is the nicest thing I will say about this abomination, because it is ugly as the day is long.
Mm-hmm.
Simon Belmont is just wearing this open-chested leather S&M outfit. There is a series of cutscenes when you play as, I think, Maria Renard. You play as her as like a kid, and she goes around like staring at all the women's boobs and like actually striking up conversations with them about like, oh, they're so big and wonderful. Oh, these things just get in the way. Oh, they're a blessed gift. Like, I'm not making that up. Those are words that were said in the game. I mean, I may be paraphrasing, but I'm not far off, because I haven't watched them more than once, maybe twice, just out of sheer, how is this real? How did they get a voice actor to say these things?
Here's what I find interesting about this game. Looking at the review scores that are published, Metacritic, which I put maybe more faith in than I should, but Metacritic has this game scored at a 49%. That's not good.
No.
That, if it were a Rotten Tomatoes score, would not be certified fresh.
No, it would not.
So, 49%. Nintendo Power, 7 out of 10. So, IGN, 7.5 out of 10. Everybody else that's listed here, less than 50%. So, were they on the take?
There is a contingent that thought this was a very good idea, because like I said, it's mechanically sound, and if the reviewer just so happened to be a big Death Note fan,
okay.
Like, I remember those reviews. I remember reading those reviews, and I'm fairly certain they came from people that were just like, and I love the arts. I love the art style. I think the Death Note guy did a really good job. And it's like, yeah, you must be a really big Death Note fan, because this is dumb. These look terrible, and now I never want to watch Death Note. Because if this is what this is what this is about, then I don't want to look at this stuff. I mean, at least they didn't get Peter Chung to do it, but
well, everything you need to know about this game can be summed up in the amount of copies that it sold in Japan.
14?
3,700.
Wow.
That
is paltry.
That is that's awful.
Yeah, that is some dismal stuff right there.
I mean, Puzzle and not to go back to Puzzle and Dragons, but Puzzle and Dragons has 220,000 likes on Facebook. They just had an event celebrating it. A Castlevania game sold less than 4,000 copies. More
and
people,
deservedly so, because
more people listen to this show than have bought that Castlevania game.
Because who wanted that? Nobody wanted that.
I don't know. I thought it could have been cool. Like, they said Castlevania fighting game, and I went, all right, it's not what I want, but okay.
Yeah, there's a concept there, having all these characters drawn together, and there's a concept that to be had there, and as a fighting game, that could have been pretty fun.
Just like Masters of Terrace Kasai. I was into that idea too, and then I played it and went, no, I'm not fucking into this idea.
No, thank you. I would like to put this back now.
Hopefully I get to play as Darth Vader on an exclusive console release eventually.
Yay. All right, so this is another one I have very
Grant Dynasty looks like Baldo.
Yeah.
That's just awful.
That's right. I forgot about that. Oh, ugh. All right.
Yeah, it's awful. Don't play this game.
Next up is Castlevania the Arcade, released in arcades on October 2nd, 2009, only in Japan. I have very little to say about this because it's a Japanese arcade game. I've never played it. I couldn't play it if I tried. But it looks neat.
That's not true.
Nah,
I'll show you how, Chris. Don't worry.
Fair enough. But didn't this have I think this had some sort of wacky ass whip control or something like that. I think this was one of those weird, can only really be played in the arcade type of situations.
It actually does. It has like a motion control thing. I don't know. The videos of it look fun. It looks like
neat.
It would have been fun.
I'm kind of sad it never came over to Dave and Buster's or something, because they get a lot of those kinds of releases.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame this never hit here, because I would like to try it. I mean, it says the arcade right in the name, so I'm not expecting classic Castlevania action. I'm expecting an arcade experience, and that could be kind of fun. And hooray for them for giving that a shot. Way to go, Konami. Back in 2009, when they didn't actively hate us.
At least it's not a pachinko machine.
Yep. No, those were already there. And a slot machine too.
Well, I love a slot machine. I mean, come on now.
Who doesn't? All right, so
addicts.
Moving on. Let's kill this. Let's make this happen here. All right. Next up on iOS and Windows phones on July 21st, 2010, worldwide, we got Castlevania Puzzle Encore of the Night.
I went to go download this the other day, and it's not there anymore.
Yeah, it was pulled off iOS, I think.
That sucks.
Yeah, because it's basically Puzzle Fighter. From everything I've seen, it's essentially the same game as Puzzle Fighter.
Yeah,
which is a great game.
Fun. I wanted to play it. I was like, oh shit, I missed this somehow. I'm gonna go. Oh no, I can't get it.
Yeah,
can't have it. I don't know. It looks fun though.
Yeah, it looks neat. It's got Symphony of the Night sprites in it, doing things,
and Puzzle Fighter
blocks, and Puzzle Fighter. Yeah,
Puzzle Fighter's fucking great.
Good times, great oldies.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And then the last game to be released in the classic Castlevania line, Castlevania Harmony of Despair for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. It was released on August 4th, 2010 worldwide on the Xbox 360, and then 2 years later, March 19th, 2012 in Japan. I've confused myself with the dates.
You have Xbox 360 was August 4th of 2010, and then PS3 March 29th.
That's right.
Of 2012 in Japan, and then it was September 27th for America.
Yeah, so it was later on PS2 than PS3 than 360, but this was a neat little experiment. I played very little of it because it had a whole leveling up system, and it was really designed to be a multiplayer Castlevania.
Yeah.
So it's like a 2D side-scrolling Castlevania where they pulled like all these characters from all the different games together, and you just kind of work together to beat these giant stages and bosses. It's really cool looking, especially since you can play as like 8-bit sprite Simon Belmont, and
which is fun.
It is fun. It's neat, but like everybody else was like already 2 weeks ahead of me when I finally got to play it, and it was like I'd be playing the game and everybody's like killing everything, and I'm running around like thwipping my whip around and doing no damage to anything. So
I'm just gonna collect all these hearts.
Wasn't extraordinarily well balanced, but it was a neat little experiment and a fun little way to say goodbye to this, because after this they moved on to Lords of Shadow and they haven't gone back to the classic series since.
And
but it was a neat little cap.
Igarashi gone, they probably will not be going back to it.
Yeah, probably never will.
The level design in this game was really cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting. You could play it like all, stretched out or zoomed out. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Zoomed in single player, but
there was a lot of really cool aspects to it, and like I played a very brief amount of this, but it was like, oh, this is cool. Not enough to keep me hooked on it, but it was cool. The bosses were cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was like pulling all these different assets and stuff from the 3DS games and the Symphony of the Night and kind of cramming it all together. It was like a mega mix. It was kind of great. So, all right. Any final thoughts on the Castlevania series before we call it a night?
Yes. I'm really excited for Igarashi's new game, Bloodstained, because it looks to be a callback to what Konami just isn't making anymore. The Lords of Shadow games are fun. I've liked all three that I've played. The 3DS one is fun, if a bit too easy, but it looks good. And then the one that was, or the two that were on PS3 were really good. I enjoyed the shit out of them. I feel that they are more like God of War and Devil May Cry than Lament of Innocent was. In retrospect, they just seem to be, they're more action focused than they are exploration focused, which is not necessarily what I want out of my Castlevania games. But other games have kind of stepped in to fill that void in the Metroidvania style, since they're not going to do it anymore. So they're good. They're fun. Definitely check them out if you are a fan of that mythology or that sort of gameplay. But hopefully with what Igarashi is doing, and with taking the time, announcing that the game is going to be delayed and not fucking around with it, not like we're going to delay it for 3 months, but it's going 2017. Shut up. It'll be out when it's done. That game looks gorgeous. It looks to be kind of what the next evolution of 2D side-scrolling Castlevania would have been.
Yeah, agreed.
It was absolutely worth kickstarting or backing.
Most definitely.
So, I don't know. I love Castlevania, man. I love the fact that it started off as an homage to the classic Universal Monster movies and morphed into this just giant genre of game. Metroidvania as a genre is probably my favorite style of game to play. Same
here, absolutely. And I agree. I love that Castlevania has reinvented itself so many times and maintained that same mythology up until Lords of Shadow. And I even think Lords of Shadow is a great addition to the Castlevania mythos. It was a really great kind of retelling of that story. Just the really, really interesting take on a lot of stuff, like a lot of the character redesigns. Like the new redesign for Simon Belmont is badass in Lords of Shadow. He just looks awesome with that big red beard. But
it's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. No, I mean, Castlevania, it's all time, man. And I'm sad to see that to some respect it's in a similar situation as the Mega Man franchise, where its parent company is just like, well, whatever.
We're done with this.
But I got every hope in the world that Iga is going to make us proud, unlike Mighty Number 9, which did not make me proud.
No.
But yeah, Bloodstained looks good. Castlevania is amazing. Play Castlevania games, especially this time of year. And that is our show. Tune in next week when we'll be talking about the Nintendo Switch reveal. It's been one of the most talked about things in the gaming world in the last week or so, but Dan and I have been doing a Castlevania retrospective, so we thought it was about time that we weighed in with our feelings, so it's going to be a hoot. We have lots of things to say now that the dust is settled. So once again, you can get in touch with us at mail@geekade.com, as well as all flavors of social media that we inhabit. You can like us on Facebook, find us on Instagram @Geekade, subscribe to our YouTube and Twitch channels for all our latest and greatest video content, follow us on Twitter at @the_Geekade. You can also find us individually on Twitter. I'm at Geekade Kris, that's Geekade Kris. Dan is at
Geekade Dan. Did you hear that? My voice cracked because I'm sick.
If you're interested in more information about anything we discussed tonight, be sure to check out the show notes. And while you're at it, you can also subscribe to this and any of our other wonderful podcasts on iTunes or Stitcher. Or if you're super nice, you can leave us a review, because any and all feedback is welcome and appreciated. We'd also like to thank Mark TDK Knight for our show's theme. You can check him out on SoundCloud and or Bandcamp, or his website, which we have a link to in the show notes. Again, always remember to keep your eyes on geekade.com, where we post something new every single day. And I just got to throw this in there because I forgot to mention it. Castlevania Judgment did have one good thing: the music. Anyway, thank you again for listening, and on behalf of Dan and myself, keep playing games.